Hello everyone, I wanted to make this video for Xenoblade fans who are looking to learn a bit more about the Xeno series' legacy and the connections between the old and new games. I was inspired to make this video after a conversation I had with some friends about the timeline in Perfect Works. Now let me take a step back for a minute and explain what that even is. So, before Tetsuya Takahashi started working with Nintendo making Xenoblade and basically every other game on the Switch, he worked with Bandai Namco to make Xenosaga, and before that, with Square to make Xenogears. I think it's well known that Xenogears was never 100% completed, and so shortly after the game's release, a book widely known as Perfect Works was published. Now, this isn't actually anything unique to Xenogears. Square actually released a number of companion books for their games, but by and large, Xenogears is one of the most well-known, and it took the series' name as its own. Perfect Works is a book which contains a number of things: official art, concept art, short stories, the list goes on. The book is mostly famous though for its lore and timeline. Among all the pages in the book, we'll only be talking about two, pages 2 and 3. If you're part of the Xenoblade community, you may have seen some of the more veteran Xeno fans refer to Perfect Works, or some of the Xenoblade games as Episode 5. This is a direct reference to Gears. Xenogears was envisioned as a 6-part saga, starting with the technologically advanced human race meeting its tragic end, then following groups of heroes throughout the ages. These would all be linear, with certain elements of previous episodes making appearances in the present ones. To make sure we're all on the same page, I'll go over a brief description of each episode. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of you who haven't played Xenogears, so I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. That said, if you want to remain 100% spoiler-free, go play Xenogears first, and then come back to this video. Alright, that said, let's get into the episodes. In Episode 1, humanity falls to their hubris and technology, and in the process plant the seeds for new life. In Episode 2, the new humanity struggles against the oppression of a force trying to take control of the new world. In Episode 3, humanity begins to repeat its old mistakes, causing another reset. Episode 4 follows a war 500 years ago, the results of which spawn many of the modern day's villains. Episode 5 is the main game of Xenogears itself. I'm not going to go into any more detail on it. Finally, we have Episode 6, An Unknown Future. We have absolutely no information about this episode. Now, I'm sure a lot of Xenoblade fans would pick up on some of these descriptions. Torn at the Golden Country, for example, is pretty similar to the summary of Episode 4, following the Aegis War and the creation of Jin as a villain, as well as Malos and Amalthus' origins. Without spoiling Xenogears, the plots of all three mainline Xenoblade games are somewhat reminiscent of it, taking many of the elements from Xenogears and recontextualizing them. The somewhat recent Future Redeemed, one could argue, is similar in concept to what I described for Episode 2, in which those who weren't assimilated into Origin struggle to fight against Mobius and Alpha as they try to free the other people under their control. That leaves us in a strange spot though. Sure, it's simple enough to say that Xenoblade 2 and Torna are equivalent to Episode 5 and 4 respectively, but what about Xenoblade 3? How could Future Redeemed equate to Episode 2 if it takes place after Xenoblade 2? The timeline in Perfect Works is a form of Takahashi's basic story outline. That said, it isn't the outline in its purest form, but rather the outline when applied to the context of Xenogears. Contrary to what many may tell you, Takahashi has not been trying to continue the same story all these years. Rather, he has been creating new iterations of the story based on these episodic outlines. These episodes are only part of a greater timeline in the context of Xenogears specifically. In the context of Xenoblade, they take on a completely different structure. For example, Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 all follow the template of Episode 5. Blade's timeline flows much differently than Gears, but nonetheless contains many of the same elements. Just how Takahashi reuses and recontextualizes many of the elements from Gears and Blade, he has done the same in terms of the timeline structure. This is all to say that Blade doesn't have to, and probably will not, follow the same pattern as the games that came before it. Before I conclude this video, I do want to talk about Episode 6. I've seen a lot of people talking about how Xenoblade 3 is the Blade series' Episode 6, and considering that you've watched the video this far, I think you can guess how I feel about that. I think Xenoblade 3 reuses far too many elements from the plot structure of Gears' Episode 5 to be considered an Episode 6 counterpart. That's completely ignoring the fact that we don't know anything about Episode 6. It's a complete enigma to us, and all we can do is speculate about what it might have been. I could tell you about what I anticipate some of the aspects of Episode 6 would have been based on Xenogears and its inspirations, but as I established in the context of Xenoblade, that would be meaningless. While some story elements may carry over, it's never been a one-to-one, and it never will be. With Xenoblade starting anew at the close of a decade-long trilogy, all we can do is wait and see what Takahashi cooks up next. I do hope that one day we get to see Takahashi make an episode 6 in some form, even if Xenoblade 4 isn't that. No matter what he makes though, it's going to be fire, and I'm excited to see what it is. The episode 5 structure works so well anyway that I wouldn't even be upset to see it for the 5th time. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think. Do you agree with my analysis of the timeline, or do you think it's more concrete than I'm giving it credit for? I'm looking forward to reading the comments. This is a discussion that really interests me. With that, thank you for watching this video. If I got some Xenoblade fans interested in Gears with this, then I'll have done what I was put on this planet to do. Have a great day, and if you haven't played Gears yet, do it.